Hi, High Commissioner. Let me just confirm with you. Ailsa Terry?
Ailsa.
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 It's very, there's a Welsh.
Scottish.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's a Scottish accent there.
Yeah, so my mother is Scottish and you say Ailsa, and I'm named after a small Scottish island off the coast of Scotland.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So, hi, High Commissioner Ailsa. Thank you so much for being here with Sinar Daily and Sinar Harian.
Terima kasih.
We welcome you to Malaysia. So, you started on August 10 and you presented your credentials to the Agong on August 17. We believe you are here with your family.
Yeah. Saya di sini dengan anak kembar saya berusia 4,5 tahun. Mereka bermula sekolah pertama kali minggu lepas dan mereka dan saya suka Malaysia dengan suami bernama Adam. Dia datang di sini memang dengan saya dan sangat gembira berada di sini.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing. You sound perfectly put into the local scene. It sounds very apt. So like, I just want to ask, like, to start off, to kick things off, how do you be a High Commissioner at the same time being a mom and a wife and a woman in this era?
Very good question. Well, I'd love to hear your views on how we do all these things as well. I think with a lot of help and support from my family, my team, my amazing team at the High Commission. I think you have to believe in yourself, but you also have to be comfortable with getting things wrong and making mistakes, and just kind of, do things your way. And be comfortable that sometimes you're not going to get to the end of your long to-do list. You're not going to do everything perfectly. We all know this feeling, I think, and just do your best. But I think for me, in addition to my job, my children is so important to me, especially when they're young. So that they kind of come above everything else for me. And my husband is great feminist, very supportive of me. Left his job to come here. And looks after the children a lot at the beginning. He's starting work soon, so he's a big part of the reason I'm able to do it.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Just like, I just want to check with you, like, there's now in today's world, there's a lot of women leaders. We have Jacinda Ardern, we have Sanna Marin. She was the youngest Finnish minister, prime minister.
Amazing.
Yeah, like, do you have any aspiration to go ahead up to that level? Like, I mean, just seeing women achieve that level at a point.
I do find it really inspiring. It makes it a lot easier as a woman in a senior leadership position when you see these amazing women around the world. But I think, especially with Prime Minister Ahern, it shows it's not easy, especially in the public eye. I think that's why it's important that you have that kind of supportive family and your friends as well. My friends mean a lot to me. I don't think politics is for me, but definitely there are a few more, roles in our foreign service after this that I would love to do. This is my first head of mission job, so this will always be extremely important to me because it's the first place I've had that privilege to lead a team. And I think Malaysia is such an amazing place to do that, but we'll have to see what happens in future. I think the most important advice I've ever received, and one of the best advice is do your job well, just concentrate on the jobs that you're doing at the moment and just do that really well. And I think that's good advice.
You said that this is your first time to be here, so how is the lifestyle here in Malaysia, all the culture, food, places that you have visited so far?
So I really love being here. I think that the food is famous around the world. Roti canai, I just saw won the competition for the best bread in the world, which I think is definitely true. So I found the food to be incredible. I think ice kacang's one of my favourite. I've tried durian.
Yes. Durian.
I like it. I think musakang I like better than the other ones. So there's definitely some durians are my favourite as opposed to others. Culture is amazing. Like I mentioned, I think, being really honest, one of the things I love about Malaysia is I feel really at home here because there's a lot of different faiths, ethnic kind of communities and so on, and that's very similar to the UK, which we probably don't talk about as much as we should. And I really love that connection between like modern UK and modern Malaysia. I think for both Malaysia and UK, there are challenges in that, in terms of balancing the needs and the, you know, different cultures within one country. But I think it's something we both do really successfully, and I'm really proud of it. So that's an amazing thing. And then nature is the other thing. You know, even looking out of the window here in KL, admittedly, you know, onto the back of the golf course, but I can see, you know, monkeys and beautiful birds, and I love, you know, nature, being outside hiking, and that is a privilege to be here.
Okay, from all the states that you haven't visited in Malaysia, what's the most favorite of states that you are feel like, okay, this is really nice for me to stay?
Oh my goodness, I can't answer that question. I feel like I would cause offence somewhere. The ones I've been to so far, I have really loved seeing Sabah and Sarawak, because they have that culture that's very different from West Malaysia, and I've loved the contrast between the two.
Okay, Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
My turn.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay, we know that you've been in the diplomatic service before. You've been placed in Islamabad, Afghanistan, and before. So how does your experience before this help you to carry out this endeavour?
I think respect for culture is one, and just really getting to know the local culture. I love that. In Pakistan, I went to kind of weddings with like Pakistani friends there, and just, I think the importance of really getting to know the culture is not just to kind of send, not just to run projects or kind of meet politicians. Those things are important, but also to get to know the people of the country as much as you can and understand the real culture. You know, go to food stalls here, talk to people, just trying to understand the culture. I think that one of the other things that's important is to understand what's going on at home as well, because like Malaysia, our politics, you know, it develops. We've had a few prime ministers over the past few years. So being a diplomat, it's all about understanding the country you're in, but I think you've got to remember to understand what's happening at home as well, in terms of like what the government wants you to achieve, like what's happening in the politics there, and make sure that you're delivering for the government, and also like learning the local language as well, like trying Bahasa, which I've really enjoyed.
Have you been practicing a lot with the locals?
Ya, boleh saya bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu dengan Abang Pemandu. Saya bertanya Abang Pemandu untuk menjadi guru saya di sini, dan saya cuba guna bahasa Melayu bila saya membeli belah di restoran, dan bila saya pergi ke Sabah, Sarawak dan negeri yang lain, dan saya jumpa ramai orang rasa gembira bila saya bercakap bahasa, dan saya berasa saya menunjuk respect dan affection untuk budaya Malaysia.
Are you teaching your kids to speak in Bahasa?
Ya, mereka sudah bercakap sedikit bahasa Melayu. Mereka berkata selamat pagi, dan nama saya, nama-nama mereka, dan di sekolah mereka belajar bahasa setiap minggu dan Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
It's gotta be cute.
yeah, very cute.
Best experience for them.
Very good, but
Yeah.
they say selamat pagi throughout the day. So I think it's a bit confusing. They keep shouting selamat pagi.
Selamat sejahtera. That's like
Yes, a safe kind of across the board.
Yeah.
I should go for that one. Yeah.
Okay, we know that you have been experienced background in diplomatic in Islamabad. So, what are your priorities for the posting here in Malaysia? Where do you want to take Malaysia-UK relations so far?
So we have this long historic relationship. You know, we all know that kind of people-to-people relationship is incredible. I haven't really met anybody who hasn't had a connection to the UK. Like, everybody has this connection to the UK, which is really special. But we want a modern partnership. So I think one is areas of like win-win cooperation, so trade, to create jobs here, jobs in the UK. CPTPP is an obvious one. Education, I think we have 20,000 alumni of British Council here, and like nearly 2,000 evenings. So really kind of building those people-to-people links, and the young generation just started being on TikTok. I think I'm the first British High Commissioner here to do that, and that's just one of the many ways I'm trying to connect to the younger generation, particularly this government kind of with some younger ministers there as well. But these other win-win areas, I think trade, technology. Having our first conference on artificial intelligence in a few months with the Malaysian government. I think it's the first Malaysia's ever had. It's the first we've ever done here. So like become partners on these new areas of technology which are changing our lives, right? I think all of our lives are being changed, chat GPT and everything else. And then the second area is like tackling challenges together as partners, so climate change, because Malaysia is this unique like biodiversity superpower. I still can't believe you have 1/5 of the species in the world in Malaysia. That is incredible. So climate change is one, and like regional security, I think, given that you're in this region which has its fair share of tensions and kind of disputes over the South China Sea and so on, so kind of really supporting Malaysia and ASEAN to deal with that and keep this region safe and secure. I had many visits from ministers here, but one last week. She was in the Navy and she knows a lot about maritime issues. She said that 95% of goods travel by sea around the world, so it just shows you how important Malaysia is as a very much a maritime state.
You were talking about regional security, and recently China came out with a new map.
New standard map.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were a lot of comments, certain states were for China while certain states are against it.
Yeah.
And Malaysia has always been very, very like on fair ground, I would say. Malaysia, the government looks up to both US and China, the Western world and also the China world.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? Like, where can the conversation go from there? Like, where will UK stand in terms of helping?
Such a great question. I think first thing is, we're really strong supporters of UNCLOS, this way of deciding these claims in the South China Sea, and I think we encourage everybody, China and others to stick to that. And Malaysia's statement, very much was along those lines, so very supportive of that approach. I think Malaysia's right to be clear about what it sees as its waters and then take that through the proper system. When it comes to kind of our approach, our Foreign Secretary just came back from Beijing. I know your Prime Minister went there really early on as well. I think our approach is quite similar to Malaysia. We're not about choosing sides. We think that we need to work with China on these global issues, but we also need to protect against some of the challenges that China presents, which I think is quite similar to the Malaysian approach, if I'm honest. I saw that your Prime Minister just said Malaysia will never take sides between US and China, and I would say that is very much our message as well, that although we're very close allies with the US, we're all one world, a number of challenges that are affecting all of us in our day-to-day lives, and we have to work together. And I think our approach in Malaysia is quite close. I do want us to increase our cooperation in the region, like when Malaysia has the presidency of ASEAN in 2025, which I think is a great opportunity to shine a spotlight on Malaysia and the amazing work you're doing, particularly on like energy transition and climate change. So yeah, just really here to like help Malaysia with what it's trying to achieve, maintain its sovereignty, maintain its own safety and security in this region. Yeah.
Okay, so like with the intention of enhancing the bilateral relations as well, you mentioned just now about trading, education, technology, and climate change and everything else in between. Maybe you can elaborate further on the climate areas, the areas of climate change and climate legislation.
I think Malaysia's net zero target is basically the same as the UK's now. So we really are like a partner. It's not kind of the UK, giving help. It's like it's a genuinely partnership. So I think the three things we're doing now are working with Malaysia on the Climate Change Act, because we have our own. It's a difficult thing to do. I think Malaysia's now doing its own. So like the legislation to ensure that you kind of reach net zero. Second is, I think, working together on energy transition. I went to Sarawak and I could not believe how advanced, way ahead of us in terms of hydrogen, for example. Okay. I think the only hydrogen charging station in Southeast Asia, and possibly all of Asia, is in Malaysia, in Sarawak. Okay. The only other one in Europe is in Germany. So Malaysia is incredibly advanced. I was really proud of that on behalf of Malaysia. I was like, you should be shouting about this. Okay. But I don't think that's always the Malaysian culture as well. It's kind of a kind of quiet like confidence, but not necessarily always like.
We're always in the spotlight for wrong things.
No, I think Malaysia should be more in the spotlight, because I think I think Malaysia is really leading the way, particularly on these kind of green issues. So we really want to help, and we've got this kind of special fund called UK Pact, where we basically have like money and expertise available to work together with other countries. So I would really like to see Malaysia become the energy powerhouse of ASEAN, and I think it can do that. You are like central, you've got the connections, you've got the technology, you've got the ambition, and I think with this government, they're really working hard on that. So that's kind of number two. And then I think number three is nature, is preserving the amazing animals and insects, birds, wildlife that you have here. I think again Malaysia, needs to shout more about what it's done to stop deforestation, and to explain that without palm oil we would be using products that would be worse for the environment, because palm oil is really efficient and effective and we all use it. So
maybe you could elaborate further when you talk about palm oil, like what's the situation? Because we do have a board and we do have enforcement and regulation, as opposed to maybe other states, or also the health benefits of palm oil itself.
Definitely.
So maybe you could talk further when it comes to palm oil. It's quite a sensitive topic, right?
Definitely. So I think I met with Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister when he came. He's obviously the Minister for palm oil as well, and I met him when he came to London. We had a great conversation about the UK approach. So what we're going to do, we're coming forth with legislation quite soon, which doesn't recognise any particular country, but what it says is, if you meet this standard within the supply chain, please do import your palm oil here. And that was going to work really well for Malaysia, I think, because your own certification is at a high standard. I think there's more we can do together to like strengthen the certification and make sure that people in the UK know that, no forests were cut down, no orangutans were harmed in the making of this palm oil, as it always says at the end of movies, right? No baby orangutans were disturbed. And I think some of that is about communication and getting the story out there. But basically our legislation will give that space for continued imports of palm oil, and CPTPP obviously removes like 99% of tariffs on trade between us anyway, and will make it easier to trade, including when it comes to palm oil. So I think UK-Malaysia partnership is a really good story. I think the key challenge, being really candid, is that we need to make sure that people in the UK and consumers in Europe don't turn away from palm oil. Because in the UK you will see kind of packets and things that say made without palm oil. Not specific to Malaysia, but there's this consumer concern, and that's what we need to tackle. So I want to work with Malaysia on that. Yes.
And when you talk about education, right, the pandemic caused quite a stop because many Malaysians had to return back to Malaysia during their studies, and a lot of people had to like finish off classes here and then go back for convocation, graduation day only there. So like how has and also when I read the news, like the UK education system, the UK want people to go, and is one of the biggest sectors for
Definitely.
the UK. So how has it been now post-pandemic in terms of students going?
Student numbers. They've recovered really well, actually. I think it took about a year or so, obviously, for people to kind of consider travelling again. I know that one of the things that Malaysians have told me they like about the UK is it's very safe. That kind of security perspective, they feel safe there, they feel welcome there. Malaysian food, that it's a welcoming culture to all different kind of faiths and cultures. And and that I think has encouraged the growth of student numbers. But I am really keen that we sell the UK here, and that we do more to kind of talk about the benefits of UK education. I'm going to give a plug to Chevening. I don't know if any of you have done it. You'd be very, very welcome to do it. We've just launched the applications for the 40th anniversary round of Chevening scholarships, so obviously completely free, paid for year of study in the UK, and then come back to Malaysia with all of those skills. I think there's 20 world leaders who've been Chevening scholars, so it really does attract people from all walks of life, and leaders of the future, and so on. I think what's really important, because a lot of people have said to me that in Malaysia you want to build your talent, keep your talent, and I'm really keen that, as well as welcoming Malaysians to the UK, that we help the Malaysian government to develop talent like here, and that people come back from the UK and contribute back to Malaysia as well.
Again, apart from climate crisis, there's food crisis, and as one of the leading major economics power in the world, what is Britain, UK, going to do about this?
Yeah, what are we doing about it? It's an issue that's really dear to my heart. Last year I worked to implement our sanctions against Russia, and I talked to a lot of different countries around the world, in Africa and Asia, about the problems they're experiencing in food security. Sanctions don't cause that. Obviously Russia is responsible for disrupting global food supply, but there are many other factors. In terms of what we're doing, this is a huge issue for the UK, because we see how important it is to us, to people in the UK who are struggling with cost of living, but also to people around the world. It's a big priority for the PM at UNGA. We're hosting a global food security summit this autumn as the UK, to which I think we've invited a huge number of countries, and that is to try and work out some practical solutions. In terms of here in Malaysia, what I would say is the UK's, one of our priorities is to work on supply chains, because this is all about managing your supply chains, isn't it? And I think Malaysia, like us, has really sophisticated supply chains that rely on countries around the world. So I would really like, when I'm here, to increase our cooperation and look at our supply chains together. Malaysia also has some really critical minerals and products that are important to the rest of the world as well. So I think there's lots of things that the UK and Malaysia can do together to help each other out in our supply chain, like a win-win thing. But also globally, I would think that Britain and Malaysia and other countries can work together to come up with some more practical solutions to reduce prices and make it more secure for people when they're buying their food.
Okay. So for many years there have been heated debates about the burqa and niqab, the Islamic veils in European countries.
Yeah.
So can we know your view in the UK? How far is it?
I think the UK has quite a different debate on this to the rest of Europe. I think we have got very, very well established communities from all different, religions. You can find and worship anybody you like in the UK, and we've had that for a very long time, not just in London, but in the country, Scotland, where my parents are from. So I don't think we have that same debate. I think there is, if you look at any school in the UK, you will see young women wearing hijab, burqa, a whole variety. You'll see women wearing other items that link to their religion. So I don't think it's controversial for us. It shouldn't be. I think the most important thing is that women are free to wear what they want and do what they want, and that for me as a woman as well is the most important thing. And if women have that faith and that's what they want to do, then that's what you should do. And the UK government has no interest in getting involved in any debate on that or legislating. I think it all comes down to individual choice and respect.
Okay, as far as you're concerned, what are the challenges for the Muslim faith in the UK?
I think not so much. I wouldn't say it's more about kind of British Muslims, but actually more about kind of different ethnic communities in the UK that face different challenges. So not so much a matter of religion, but more of kind of ethnic heritage, and ensuring that everybody has the same opportunities when it comes to education in particular and the workplace. And I think like every country, we just have continuously to improve and ensure that everybody has the same opportunities. But there's some fantastic organisations in the UK that you might be aware of that work specifically with British Muslims. But I think we also have, we have British Muslims in the cabinet, we have many British Muslims in our Houses of Parliament, we have some incredibly influential and very wealthy British Muslim business people and entrepreneurs. And just for me, I see British Muslims in every part of British life. I don't see as kind of British Muslims as somehow like a separate community. Like for me, it's the same, amongst my own friendship group, amongst my own family. I don't really make that distinction, and I don't think you would find many kind of British diplomats who would. We also have our first ever British Muslim head of mission in Yemen right now, and also my colleague Fawzia in Toronto, who was our first kind of British Muslim Consul General. So that's a really good and important barrier that we've just broken. It's fantastic to see. Yeah.
Okay. Besides bilateral relations, it is understood that UK also wishes to work with Malaysia on key local issues and regional issues.
Yeah.
What are some of the focus areas?
What kind of things? I think like local issues, some of the things that affect people's kind of day-to-day lives is transport, like in KL. So we're very have a really close partnership on rail, because we obviously we're trying to renovate our whole network. Malaysia's trying to renovate its whole network, so that, I know from my own team, so that you don't have to kind of drive and then get the train and then drive to the office. It's the same in the UK. So big partnership on rail and those other kind of infrastructure things that affect people's lives. And then regional issues, energy we've mentioned, but also when it's the ASEAN chairmanship for Malaysia, I think we also want to use that to really work and improve kind of education cooperation across Malaysia, and trade cooperation as well.
And how do you see the future for Malaysia and UK?
Very bright. I would say that. But I think, you've got this new government in Malaysia with, I've seen, setting out a lot of ambitious reforms on areas where the UK has expertise or where we've worked together for a long time. And I think the strength of our, those like personal links, when I saw our king, before I came out here, he immediately when he heard I was going to Malaysia, he was talking about lots of different things, his knowledge of the country. And when I saw the Yang Dipertuan Agong here, he was so warm in how he spoke about the UK, his son just graduating from Sandhurst. So it feels like at every part of society, there are these warm links. And I think, one of my big jobs here is to keep that going with the young generation, and that they see that the UK is a really relevant, diverse place, because I think maybe the previous generation had those kind of knowledge and links with the UK, and now my challenge, I think, is to make sure that those younger generations have the connection. So yeah, bright future.
Okay, so I have two questions before we end, but I'll go with the first one. So back in June, there was a little controversy where Matt Healey from the 1975, well, he is generally just controversial, even before coming to Malaysia. He dated Taylor Swift and eat raw meat on stage and things like that, and kissing people randomly. So, okay, I'm not going to talk about what he did on stage, but it created a whole ripple effect to the economy of the people and the event, Good Vibes Festival. So it was their 10th anniversary, and it was supposed to be a 3-day concert, and it ended abruptly on the first night, and the minister cancelled the other 2 days, and there were like at least 40 vendors, food vendors, and tickets were, everything. I'm not talking about like, I won't be talking about the festival itself, but I'm talking about like, when faces like this come to countries and they act certain ways, and it impacts the local communities, it impacts the economy, it impacts the local group, LGBT group, it impacted the businesses, and I mean they're still reeling to, trying to just reel back from what happened, and it's been like almost 3 months now. So like, what's your comment when it comes to issues like this? They are actually like suing him, so I don't know where that is headed, but like just generally what happens when because he's a British man, so yeah.
He is. I'm definitely not gonna comment on the specifics of it, particularly as you said, kind of ongoing legal action.
Yes.
I think probably three things I would say. One is the UK's position on LGBT rights is completely known. We kind of stand for those rights. We believe in them. We think people should be free to have relationships with whoever they wish. The second thing I would say is that we want to have a respectful conversation with the Malaysian government and with different, Malaysian organisations on these issues, and have that kind of greater understanding of each other's position, and work together to support the community here in Malaysia. And I think that's kind of the third thing I would say, is that when you're talking about these issues which are very sensitive, on which people have deeply held views, it's just important to talk to communities in Malaysia and to listen, and to be respectful of all views, and to kind of have those kind of good conversations, and not necessarily shout from the rooftops, but to show support. But certainly very kind of proud of UK values in this space. I think it's sad that the festival didn't go ahead. I love festivals. I met my husband at a music festival. So I'm a big fan of festivals. I think KL has some really fantastic music and culture, which I'm really looking forward to getting to know. So just looking forward to going to the next Malaysian festival, or maybe the next Good Vibes festival. But I think on these issues, just continue the dialogue and understand that there are different views.
Will you be open to I don't know, maybe communicate with Good Vibes, or just in general the music association, the cultural association, just to understand how the impact of, it may seem just like a 2-day concert, but it actually impacted a whole large local economy, So
it's a huge thing. A huge thing. Yeah, and I would hope that I'd be very happy to speak to them, and I'd also hope that they're having a conversation with the with the ministry here as well, about how to support them get back on their feet. But I have lots of friends who've worked in this area back in the UK, and I know how much work it involves to put on events of all kinds. So really kind of respect and empathise with what they're going through. And of course I'd be more than happy to meet any organisation in Malaysia that wants to meet with me. Door is always open. Yeah.
Okay, so last question. Malaysia will be celebrating 60 years of Malaysia. We recently celebrated 66 years of Malaysian independence from the UK. Tanah Melayu lah, Malaya. So now Malaysia, 60 years. When we interview a lot of people involved in the whole process, a lot of people and experts say that it was mainly Sabah and Sarawak joined Malaysia, the Federation, and also Singapore, because we were all British colonies, and we had that element of, it would be weird if we were to merge with Indonesia, because Indonesia was under the Dutch, so under the same umbrella lah kan. So what's your thought and what's your take in that? Because you were saying that we have lots of history together and things, so
we do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is for that's for kind of Malaysia to decide its own direction, and how Malaysia as a country wants to be. All I would say as an outsider with from a country with this hugely historic relationship with Malaysia is, I think Malaysia is a thriving country with a huge amount of potential, and it seems to me that it is gained so much from all of its constituent parts, like the passion and the energy that I've encountered when I've been going around Malaysia, and the richness of your culture comes a lot from the combination of all those different states and parts of Malaysia. And I think what I learned, I looked at our archives before I came here, which are kind of publicly available, as to all these, the history of UK, Malaysia and independence and everything. And what is clear is that it's just a huge amount of change at that time, and you have this hindsight of what would have been better, would have been not. I think it feels like at the time, incredible first Prime Minister of Malaysia and all those involved were just trying to do the right thing in that context. And trying to forge this future for Malaysia. And I think, that has succeeded. Malaysia is, if you look at, global indexes of doing business, human development, equality, Malaysia comes pretty high on a lot of those. I think Malaysia has got so much to be proud of, and be interesting to see, next 60 years, where does Malaysia go next? But I certainly can see that Malaysia has a really big role to play in the region. And like I said, I'd like to kind of see that more of a spotlight on what Malaysia's done.
So, High Commissioner Ailsa, thank you so much for being with us today and joining us for an interview. It has been very, very insightful, and we wish you all the best for your time here, and we hope to see you again on Sinar.
Thank you. I'll definitely be back.